council meeting for the town of Edgewood. And I call this meeting to order. First item this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. All right. First item is the approval of this evening's agenda. I'll make a motion to approve this evening's agenda and request a second. And we'll take attendance. We've got a motion and a second to approve, and as I said, I will take attendance. Councilor Abraham, are you present?
I am here.
And how would you vote on tonight's agenda?
Do we have, okay, yeah, aye.
Okay. Councilor Jaramillo, are you present?
I am here.
And how
And I wanted to find out if item number 3, it does say followed by feedback from the governing body and the public, and I wanted to just ensure that we were having public comment regarding District 3 item 3.
As it states in item 3 in the agenda, the continued discussion and presentation will be followed by feedback from the governing body and the public. And how do you vote on tonight's agenda?
I vote aye.
And Councilor Hawley, are you present?
Present.
And how do you vote this evening on the agenda?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. We are also have present the clerk treasurer, we have the secretary, we have our road crew, or supervisor, and chief of police, and town's attorney. So, without any further discussion, I need a motion on the consent agenda.
Point of order, Mayor Pro Tem, is Mr. Czar with us this evening?
No, Mr. Czar is not here this evening.
Okay, do we have three with us that has not represented half of the governing body or one person on the governing body?
We have Jessica here this evening from the attorney's office.
Okay, just order, wanted to note that Ms. Nixon is conflicted because she has represented you and Linda Hawley in your personal and official capacities.
Okay. The item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I will make a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this evening's consent agenda. Councilor Jaramillo.
Mayor Pro Tem, just wanted to let you know you need to rule on my point of order, and we need to vote if you're going to rule in a way I don't agree with.
I don't know what direction your point of order was going in, Counselor. I didn't hear anything that can be ruled on.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Ms. Nixon, due to a conflict of interest from being represented part of the governing body in their personal and official capacities, is conflicted from representing this evening for this meeting the entire governing body.
Once again, you made a statement, Counselor. I don't know that there is any action that can be taken upon that statement.
Okay, the action that I'm requesting is that Ms. Nixon is not recognized as the town attorney tonight. She's not able to give us advice.
I don't see how, once again, I don't see that there's an action there, Counselor. You've made another statement.
Okay, well, just the fact that you either agree with me or you do not, and then we go.
Now you're asking for a decision. You're asking for an agreement, Counselor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, because in that case, she would not be able to represent the governing body this evening.
She represents the town's law firm, so as far as representing the town, the law firm represents the town. So I guess I disagree with you.
Okay, so we just need to vote on that. I'll make a motion that the mayor's point of order basically is not valid, and that Ms. Nixon should not be allowed to give advice and represent the entire governing body at this evening's meeting due to her conflict of interest.
Okay. Rather odd statement of a motion, but do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second that I don't think I can repeat exactly, basically stating that Councilor Jaramillo is dissatisfied with the person of council representing the town. How do you vote, Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
I would like some discussion. I would like to say that, first of all,
Councilor Abraham, you are out of order. And we are in the middle of a vote. How do you vote?
I vote aye.
Councilor Holly, how do you vote?
Nay.
I vote nay. Motion dies for lack of a majority. Once again, we have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda this evening. Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
I need to discussion, please. I need to remove the three for discussion and voting separately for amendments.
Is that a motion, Councilor?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to remove all items from the consent agenda and consider them individually. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Nay.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
I vote nay. Motion dies for lack of a majority. Once again, consent agenda this evening in its entirety. Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Nay.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Nay.
Councilor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Once again, our consent agenda dies for lack of a majority. Moving on, we have a presentation discussion. We're continuing our discussion on districting for the town of Edgewood. Mr. Sharp is here this evening with the presentation. He has agreed to provide us with a quick synopsis of the presentation made at the special council meeting. This will be the second time that this has been discussed openly in public, and will be followed by feedback from the governing body and then the public. Mr. Sharp.
Great. Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks so much for having me here this evening. As Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, I was before the council last, I guess it was, today's last week on the 8th. And so I will try to keep this much briefer than the previous meeting with respect to talking about the guidelines and the plans. And so I'll just I'll skip down some slides and try to get a brief overview, and then kind of talk about a request from last meeting to add the current elected officials onto the maps, and then also added some population tables so you can get an idea of what the population looks like for the plans for each of the districts within each of the plans. So go ahead and roll right into this, and just talking about the town commission redistricting plans that would take effect for the November 2021 election. Let's see here. There we go. We have a lot of experience. That's what this slide says, and lots of redistricting projects over the past 3 or 4 decades or so for research and polling. The key part of this slide, in terms of who redistricts, was to point out that for the city council, this is the responsibility of the city council to make in terms of the decision on which redistricting plan or districting plan to choose. It's not of the state legislature or the county commission or your local school board. This is a decision to be made by the local governing body for the town. This is all in preparation for the municipal election in 2021, November. We're using 2010 census data. Unfortunately, the 2020 census data doesn't come out until August, September. Not sure the exact dates yet, so we're restricted to using data based on the 2010 census. We're redistricting all the lines, trying to figure out, well, who lives within each district and who gets to vote or is represented within each district. We do have a change in governing body structure, and that's why we're talking about this tonight. We originally had 4 city councils. Now a vote has now been taken to change the governing body to a county or commissioner manager system with 5 districts. And so that's why we're districting this time around. 5 basic principles of redistricting. You have to meet the first 4, the legal constitutional requirements, and then the 5th one, communities of interest. That is basically everything else you can use to consider what your districts look like. The 4 legal constitutional principles of equal population, minority voting rights, compactness, and contiguity. And it's important, I know there may or may not be some people in the audience who haven't seen this, so I wanted to make sure I cover some of these points. Another common question is who gets counted in the census, and therefore who is part of the population figures that are shown during redistricting or during districting. And in short, it's everybody. Adults, kids, citizens, non-citizens, college students, those who are incarcerated, and so on. Basically, it's everybody. We have a constitutional mandate to redistrict back in the 60s with a lot of law cases that set forth that it is possible that districting can be justiciable, or it can go to the courts to talk about issues like equal population, voting rights issues, and so on. And one of the key criteria here, or issues that we talk about, is equal population. And it's basically one person, one vote. We're talking about equal representation. No matter where you live throughout the town, you have the same representation as anybody else. For congressional districts, that population has to be as equal as practicable. Basically, every congressional district should be identical in population as possible. For city commissions and city councils, they have a little more leeway. They don't have to be perfectly equal, but they have to be close enough. And so when I say close enough, in a perfect world, every district within Edgewood, if you take the total pop according to the 2010 census, roughly 5,900 divided by 5, then each district should be about 1,177 people. When I said, well, you can get close, you don't have to be perfect in a smaller jurisdiction. You just have to get within plus or minus 5% of that 1,177. So if you fall within a range, this is in that second set of bullet points, of 1,119 to 1,235, as long as your population of each district falls within that range, they're considered substantially equal in the eyes of the courts. It's based on total population, not registered voters. We do need to take care of minority voting rights, though. With Edgewood, because the Hispanic population is evenly spread throughout the town, there's no way to create a majority Hispanic district. And so, with respect to minority voting strength, this really isn't applicable to the town of Edgewood. There's no way to create a majority Hispanic district within the town. For compactness, we're talking about what it looks like as our boundaries, not necessarily its geographic area. So we're just taking a look at the outer boundaries. Do they look reasonable? Do they look, not with huge, funny appendages sticking out if possible? And so we aim for compact districts, so that you have a kind of an interesting outer boundary, especially in the northern part of the town. And so what we want to do is try to keep the inner boundaries between districts relatively compact. And so that's that third point, that outer boundaries is irregular and effective compact. Some examples: New Mexico, 3rd Congressional is compact. The two on the right are not compact. They were struck down by the courts as being illegal racial gerrymanders, created based solely on either creating majority Hispanic districts or majority or influenced African American districts in North Carolina. Those are struck down because they were not compact, and they subordinated some redistricting principles to just create race-based districts. When we talk about contiguity, we just want to make sure that every district is made up of one piece and not two or more. You have to be able to put for any district, you have to be able to put your pencil in that district on a map and get to every other part of that district without lifting up the pencil. The figure on the right, you'll notice that District A in blue is not contiguous, it's two separate pieces. And then communities of interest is everything else you can think of. Neighborhoods, geographic boundaries, you can avoid pairing your current elected officials, political subdivisions, historical traditions, and so on and so on. You may want to use I-40 as a boundary between districts, and we can use that where possible. But we have to remember that if we have to, say, cross I-40 in order to make districts that are equal population, then that's something we'll need to do. We won't be able to use I-40 as a hard boundary all the way across the town. So all these plans are rarely perfect. You have to look at all its criteria. You have to balance the criteria against each other. Some may work against the other. And so we just have to come up with a plan that is, makes some relative sense, have some trade-offs between various criteria, and then it's up to the council to decide which plan it feels best meets the needs of the community. And the initial plans were there for discussion. If the councilors have an idea or a suggestion that we can take a look at, then we'll try to take a look at maybe making a modification, assuming that modification meets those previous redistricting guidelines. We're in the first part of the process of redistricting. Talk about the HCs, we showed some plans, we got an input about the plans, modify the plans as necessary, and then eventually the council will adopt the plan. And then the voters will be assigned to the correct districts, and eventually you have your election in November. So here's the plan. I'm going to go straight to the Plan A with the current councilors, and the mayor, I understand, is not on the governing body anymore, but I felt that as elected officials, just to give you an idea of what it would look like with 5 elected officials on a map. And so just to clarify, Mr. Torres did, at my request, send me a list of all the councilors, all the elected officials, their addresses. And what I did was I drew the plans without knowing where the councilors reside, and to try to get a kind of almost an unbiased look at the districts and what they could look like. And after drawing the districts, and I went ahead and drawn the stars representing the current elected officials just to see how that the distribution turned out. And interestingly, the councilors are relatively distributed throughout the town, except for councilors Hawley and Abraham. They do happen to be in the same district in every plan, and that's mainly due to their proximity to get to each other, and within that District 5 in the southwestern part of the town. If you wanted to look at a kind of a north-south or an east-west orientation where the councilors live, generally it's on the western half of the town. The eastern half doesn't really have any current elected officials living within it. So in this particular plan, Councilor Abraham would be in 1, Councilor Hadamian would be in 3, Councilors Hawley and Abraham would be in 5, former mayor in 4, and then District 2 doesn't have any current governing board or governing body member within District 2. So last time we looked at the districts, and I wanted to show you some population information. So what's interesting about this is when we talk about creating districts that are substantially equal in population and falling within that plus or minus 5%, you can see just an example that District 1, so there's 2 rows for every district. The row in white represents total population. The row that's shaded in gray represents the adult population. But we like to add the adult population because that's important for minority voting rights issues. And so I'll be able to show you that real quick. So just an example, District 1 has 1,178 total population. And that's within one person, what we would call the ideal pop. So that's that total pop of the town divided by 5 is 1,177. So District 1 is one person off. That's pretty darn good. And so the deviation is 0.1%. We're trying to get within plus or minus 5%. So we're well within that range. And then from left to right, you have the Hispanic population and the non-Hispanic, white, non-Hispanic, Native American, and so on. If you look at the very, very bottom, you'll notice that to see totals for the town, notice that the 18 plus row, it starts with 4,400 roughly adult population. 2 columns over is under the Hispanic column. There's 915 according to the 2010 census, making up about 21% of the town. And if you looked at that equivalent number for each one of the districts, then you'll notice that every district has an adult percent Hispanic, I'll say plus or minus 2 or 3 of that 20%. So that tells me that the Hispanic population is relatively evenly distributed throughout the town, and that there's no way to create a majority Hispanic district within the town. And some people may say, well, you have 5 districts, if you have 20% of the population is Hispanic, you have one that's percent Hispanic, but it all depends on the distribution. And so this particular plan, everything's within plus or minus 5%. The largest deviation, if we just take absolute value, is that negative 2.1%. That's the furthest away from the perfect population. The largest deviation on the positive side is 1.4, so you have a total deviation of 3.5. That's that 1.4 down to negative 2.1. That's a total deviation of 3.5. So the districts are pretty close. For Plan B, just here's the same plan, same style with the counselors as stars. And you'll notice the same population, same pattern occurs with Councilors Abrams and Jaramillo being in their own district, Councilors Holly and Abraham compared in a single district, District 5, and District 2 has no current elected officials of the governing body within its boundaries.
Mr. Sharp, just a quick comment. My address has changed. I'm still in Councilor Hall, in the same district as Councilor Holly. I moved up almost like right down the road from her a little bit. So, I don't know if that matters a lot or not.
Okay, Councilor Abraham, did I get that right? Or
yes.
I just want to make sure I was the right person. Okay, so yeah, I have you at roughly, I'm trying to see the Dukes and...
I have you at 24 Moriarty Road, and I'm actually at 21 Morper Lane.
Okay. All right. So I can certainly update these maps. If I can get that, address just the email from Mr. Torres, then that would be helpful. I'll just update the maps with that address.
Okay.
So this was Plan B. Took a little bit different take than Plan A did. Plan A had District 3 going more east-west, and this one I thought, well, let's see what happens with District 3 to go north-south along 344, so it didn't cross 344. And so it's still relatively compact, is following major geographic boundaries. Because it went north-south, it did end up crossing I-40. We actually have 2 districts crossing I-43 and 4. As mentioned last time, for that District 5, the green that sticks east, way out east into District 4, that's one census block that I can't really split and put it into 5. All the population there is on right around, Edgewood Road. So on the western quarter of that block, that's east of Edgewood Road. All the population is close to Edgewood Road, so it's a little misleading, I think, with respect to outer boundary. It may look less compact, but the population is actually pretty compact within the district. As we look at the population statistics, same concept as in Plan A. The population deviations are still pretty close to zero. The largest deviation is -2. The absolute deviation. The second largest is positive 1.9, so you get a total deviation of 3.9%. So that falls well within what they call the 10% total deviation. All those districts are within plus or minus 5%. For Plan C, this was just a different take on Plan A with respect to districts 1 and 2. And the last time District 1 was more of an east-west district. This time District 1 is more of a north-south, going over down to Dinkle and then south of Bachelor Draw, what kind of that little triangle there at Dinkle and 344 goes into District 1. And District 2 is more of an east side of Edgewood type district. Again, the counselors are shown on the map, and the same pattern as before with the previous two plans. So let's look at the population. Once again, the population deviations are within plus or minus 5%. This one does have the largest total deviation. So taking the two biggest absolute value, it's 3.2 for District 1 and -2.5 to District 2. That's a total deviation of 5.7 for this particular plan. But it's still within that plus or minus 5% that we shoot for. So just a reminder, these plans, they're starting points. If you have any questions on them or comments, I'm more than welcome to take any suggestions or questions that you may have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp.
My biggest thing that I've seen is here, maybe we can just make sure we don't split subdivisions. I see on a couple of them you split some subdivisions to get the numbering right, and I think if we keep those together, that might be helpful.
Well, Councilor Abraham, just as an example, we can just look at Plan C. So there's, and I can look at this just looking at the map and probably think, well, there's that line between District 2 and 4 along Maple and Duncan. And the people south of those two streets, not between Maple and Duncan and Church, those are in District 4, where maybe in an ideal world where we didn't have to worry about population deviation, that population between Church, Maple, and Duncan would go into District 2.
One of the other things is right here on Williams Ranch Road, that also, that's kind of like the other half of Williams Ranch Road is really more in line with the subdivision across the street. So like if you, and then up here at the corner of 1 and 2, where you have that little triangular area there, that also is one subdivision that you're splitting up. So there's a couple, there's the one on Williams Ranch Road and the one here at Epic that you're kind of splitting up there. So maybe if you could do something with those, maybe.
Right. Yeah, Councilor Abraham, I will look at it. What I will say is more than likely, it's all going to depend on the population and how many people are in the blocks that we're moving. And so I would say that many times when we want to fix one thing or fix one issue in terms of communities of interest, and this definitely falls within that community of interest category. that we end up, we might solve one issue and we might create a different one.
Can we look at the population again on Plan C?
Sure.
So you see what District 1 is way over and District 2 is under. So I think if you move that one little corner out of 1 and put it into 2, that might be helpful.
Okay, so District 1, Councilor Abraham, thank you. For District 1, it's above by 38 people, so we can actually remove 38 people from District 1 plus another 50 or so, because then it would take us down to below zero, closer to 5% negative, and put it into 2. So let's take a look at that idea just off the top of my head. Right now you have, about 29, 67 people difference between those two districts. So let's go back up the map. And so we're talking about the folks who live south of Epic, between Epic and Dingle.
Right.
Just in that area alone, I mean, you're looking at 180 people or so, just under 200.
Okay.
And
I wasn't sure there were that many.
yeah, there's a lot. If when going through these, sometimes I try to keep neighborhoods together as best as possible. I mean, obviously not everywhere that's possible, but if the neighborhood has to be split, like you said, like Williams Ranch Road, at least that's a major divider between the two, a major thoroughfare, if you will.
Right.
And so we're definitely going to be some pluses or minuses, for every single plan like this. And but I do appreciate the ideas, and that's what I'm here for, is to answer your questions and try to give you an idea of what's possible or what's not.
Okay.
Council, do we have more questions from councilors for Mr. Sharp?
I was.
Go ahead, Councilor Harmiel.
I did want to hear from Councilors Abraham and Holly if they're willing to share. As far as both being in the same district, we don't usually see that. If that's something that you wanted Mr. Sharp to take a look at or not.
I don't think that's anything that he needs to change, but I will say when I was first appointed to the council in 2017, when I was being considered for approval, at the resignation of Councilor Ring, my understanding was that the governing body was pleased to see that I was south of I-40 because that's also where Councilor Ring lived. And I've been in the same location for over 20 years now, so I'm not planning on moving. I don't think we need to redistrict that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to redistrict Councilor Holly and myself because we are pretty close to each other.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I do have a question for Mr. Sharp. With regard to the plans or the process or however, we've now discussed this at council a couple of times, and you had, and I'm looking for the page because I had it there just a minute ago and I need to find it so I can use your exact words. Where is it? It's right here. So, according to the process you've outlined on 16, I think it is, of your presentation, public meetings, which we are currently having, and we will continue to have, public input, which I hope to receive. We've shown several plans, and at this point we've got a little bit of input. I believe you've gotten a little bit of input. And then we'll take a look at revising plans and then adopting a plan. My question really is, how long are you normally doing this process with an organization like a municipal organization? How many meetings generally? How much time are we talking about? What kind of general process has been used elsewhere in your experience?
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, the quick answer is it varies, and the longer answer is it just depends on the needs of the community. City of Albuquerque, they probably had, I couldn't dare to count the number of meetings that we had with the City of Albuquerque, because I think they have big meetings every single city council district, and there were a lot. So I would say that's an outlier with respect to the number of meetings and the number of times that plans were presented to the governing body and the public. But I'd say typically what happens is it's a process of about 3 meetings, generally. The first meeting is what we did last week. Went over the plans, more thorough introduction of the ABCs of redistricting, answered a lot of questions. The second meeting is kind of a revise or a kind of a reduced introduction to the process and talking about the plans. If there were any suggestions in the first meeting in terms of modifying the plans, we would have brought those here. I would have brought those here today. If I'm able to come up with a plan based on Councilor Abraham's input for the next meeting, then I can show that as well. And so that would be a third meeting. But my general course of action there is it's advisable to, if a plan is shown for the first time at a meeting, for example, a modification, it's probably best to wait till the next meeting to go ahead and adopt a plan. Unless the council really doesn't like a revised plan. But so I would say normally it's about three meetings, with the third meeting, being the one in which a plan is adopted. If for whatever reason you need to take an extra meeting or two to talk about revised plans or just discuss it further, then that certainly is possible.
Okay, thank you. I've been looking at these plans rather carefully and looking at the population distributions. I'm beginning to like Plan A an awful lot. Only one district crosses I-40. There's there's very little splitting of neighborhoods. There is a little, and I realize that's with the idea that we're trying to as easily and contiguously as possible divide the population, but it's an easily recognizable set of roads that divide the population. I think the two areas that might be in question are just off of Church, between Church and Duncan and Maple, and then to the north, District 2, and I cannot read, even with my glasses on full blast, the road names on this map in front of me. So, but that one corner, well,
It's Kaylee, Casey, over to Mosley.
yeah, and those are the two places I think that might be confusing to people as to which district they are in. But that's a relatively small area in both of the cases. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I definitely appreciate Plan A at this point. Looking at the other plans, my opinions on those are, we're splitting more districts between I-40 with Plan B. I think fewer might be more reasonable, more understandable, more logical. Plan C, really interesting, but the distribution of population there is quite considerably more and Councilor Abraham did point out a couple of very interesting neighborhoods being sort of disassembled or cut in half or that kind of thing. So there's my 5 cents worth.
Yeah, I agree. Plan B is my least favorite. Plan A, the one thing I can say about that little area right there is I do believe that's mostly the Saddle Ridge subdivision. So if we could keep that Saddle Ridge subdivision intact, then I think that would make, it would at least be a reasonable reason why it's in a different district. I think probably Plan A is preferable over Plan C because Plan C does split the future subdivisions apart. Is my comment.
Councilors, anyone else? Anyone else? We can certainly open it up to public comment with regard to the plans and hear what the public has to say at this point. If you are in agreement. I hear nothing.
Yes, on my part, that would be great. I would like to hear from them.
Okay. Okay. Councilor Hawley, do you have any comments?
No, I think I'm ready to hear from the public now.
Okay, great. So, as we have in the past, I will open up the lines and ask for names and whether or not the person on the line wishes to comment. Caller number 2, you are unmuted. Caller number 2. Anyone?
Sabina Price.
Sabina Price. Ms. Price, would you like to comment on the plans that are before us?
I would like to say that elected officials are to represent what is in the best interest of the town of Edgewood, and that this newly chosen style of government, which was by far chosen by the people of Edgewood, the power play needs to stop. And districting needs to really not tear neighborhoods apart. I certainly do not believe that our neighborhood should be torn apart where our little green spot belongs to number 5 when it should be in district number 4. On the other hand, I believe that districting is completely contraindicated since we are less than 10,000 people and that the people of Edgewood have a right to stop this districting and vote at large. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Caller number 3. Caller number 3. Would you like to comment?
Hi, this is Linda Burke.
Hello, Ms. Burke. Would you like to comment on districting this evening?
Yes, I am curious, looking at the maps and spent some time looking at these. On plan, I think it's A that you all seem to think of is good. I'm just curious, the little portion on section District 5 that crosses Edgewood 7, would that be able to be balanced out if the portion at Church, Duncan, and Maple were put into District 2? Would that somehow balance District 4 out in a way that follows a little bit more major roadways?
So, Ms. Burke, if I can see if I can clarify, you're talking about the small cutout of Section 5 to the south of I-40 and to the east that projects itself into Section 4? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes,
you're
correct.
okay. And what neighborhood are you're saying move the boundary at Maple and Duncan farther north to maybe Birch or something? Is that what you're proposing?
No, I was actually proposing Maple and Duncan, that boundary line be Church rather than Maple and Duncan.
Okay. Okay. And Mr. Sharp, I think, can speak to this, but my guess is that if you shrink 4 by reducing both the little projection from 5 and draw the line at church, 4 becomes very small, 2 becomes considerably larger. But I'll defer to Mr. Sharp. That's just my guess.
Okay, and then there's a neighborhood that it goes on both sides of Williams Ranch Road. I think the street is called Alexandria or Alexander, something like that. So that might be another, to keep a neighborhood boundary, another area to consider. But I mean, all in all, I know this is a big job, and while we cannot read what's on the screen as far as numbers distribution, because the images on Facebook are so unclear, I just tried to listen to what he said, and it sounds like they're all pretty close anyway. So that's my only input. Thank you.
Mr. Sharp, can you comment on those suggestions?
Sure, Mayor Barton, those are good suggestions. Thank you, Ms. Burke. So if we take a look at this little bit of District 5 that crosses Edgewood Road into District 4, I think what I heard was, is it possible to put those people into District 4 instead of 5? And if we look at the population of District 5 as it exists on the screen, right now it's at 25 people below the ideal. Remember, our range is about plus or minus 56, 57 people. So really you only have, another 31 people you could take out of 5. So 5 is already on the low end. We're looking at moving even more people out of 5. And I believe that neighborhood has almost 50 people in it. And so that green little section of District 5 is on the other side of Edgewood Road. So if you remove 50 people from 5, then right after that you can see that District 5, instead of being 25%, 25 people below the ideal, would be 75 people below the ideal. That's outside of the plus or minus 56 from the perfect population. And so that's why District 5, I would have loved to have stayed on Edgewood Road, but it ends up being too small. And the choice there is, well, do we go across Edgewood Road to pick up the population that 5 needs, or do you go north and cross I-40? At the corner of, up to Church and 344, that little triangle kind of southwest of Walmart, south of Church. So that was the choice, to keep 5 south of I-40, and if we had to take another little neighborhood, it'd be one that's just on the other side of Edgewood Road as opposed to crossing I-40. So that's the reason for District 5 looking the way it does. For Districts 2 and 4, Duncan and Maple, I think we might be able to move maybe the people below Duncan into District 2 from District 4 and still have the population be okay. But then the population deviation is a little bit further apart, a little bit bigger. But I still think so. Let me see. There are about 43 people in there. And so let's see, look at this, 43, 4. So it's possible. You could put the folks on the south side of Duncan. So basically take those people north of Church and take the eastern people south of Duncan, put them into 2 from 4. And I think the deviations still be okay within plus or minus 5, but they're just bigger. They're not as close to that 0 deviation. So that's the trade-off there with respect to 2 and 4.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, that was helpful.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Now we have caller number 4. Caller number 4, are you there? Hello? Caller number 4. I don't hear anyone at number 4, so let's move on. Caller number 5.
Yes, this is Karen Kaiser.
Yes, Ms. Kaiser.
Thank you. I really have enjoyed Mr. Sharp's presentations. I understand more about districting than I did before we started. And I also appreciate that you've answered my questions that I had made a note of, knowing this was coming up on tonight's agenda. I really wanted to see those population numbers for each district, so that was very helpful. And I really appreciate that you all, as the governing body, and Mr. Sharp, as the firm doing the districting, are mindful of busting up neighborhoods or homeowners associations or things where our little town has congregated together. I know it can't be perfect, but I really appreciate that you're giving that thought. I agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem, that Plan A seems to just make the most sense and do the least, have the least deviation and the least splitting up of areas. The only other matter I wanted to speak to, perhaps you'll advise me that I should wait until another agenda, but it's regarding voting by district. I understand fully that the law mandates that we form these districts, and that we would have formed them even with council mayor once we reached 10,000 to obey the law. But I am concerned about the people of Edgewood not being able to vote for this brand new governing body in this initial commission manager election. I hope that you, as a governing body, will really think of what the people want. This is like the day Edgewood was founded. We have an entirely new governing body that's going to be seated January of 2022, and I think it's very important to the residents that they have a voice in choosing that additional commission. And then if down the road you feel it's appropriate to vote by district, so be it. But I know we don't have to by law, because other small towns in New Mexico that have opted to be commission manager have formed the districts as we are doing, but in fact they vote at large. Aztec, through their consequences, Raton, we wouldn't be the first. We'd be one of several. So I do hope you'll consider that, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. The decisions before us, before we make any further decisions, the first plan that has to be approved is the districting, and then we can go on from there. But this is the most crucial, if the most important thing that we have to get past relatively soon. So thank you for your comments, Ms. Kaiser. Caller number 6. Caller number 6. Caller number 6, are you there? I don't hear anyone at caller 6. Caller number 7. Hello, caller.
This is Jerry Powers.
Mr. Powers, would you like to comment on the districting plans?
No, I'm just listening and taking it all in. I don't really have any comments on it.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Caller number 9.
This is Jonathan Longoria.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I could not hear your last name. Jonathan?
Yeah, it's Jonathan Longoria.
Yes, go ahead.
I think that the redistricting is looking good. I just think that it needs to stay away from, as far away as possible from anybody really in this area from sort of making the decision. I think it needs to stay independent as possible in order to be as non-partisan as possible. I think with people talking about neighborhoods and everything like that, and kind of saying that they're splitting them up is wrong, I think that's getting close to gerrymandering. So I think what we need to do is give it to a company and just tell them, do it and give it back to us and we'll approve it.
Okay, Mr. I'm still sorry I couldn't understand your your last name. I heard Jonathan though.
Yeah.
We've done that. The Research and Polling is an independent organization that does this, and it has a long history of presenting districting plans to municipalities and other governmental organizations in the state. The whole point here, I believe, and I, what I've gathered from my looking into districting and having participated in other districting at various times in the past, is that the idea is to get as even a number of people, and I'm not saying voters on purpose, because it's not voters, it is people, as even a number of people as is possible without dividing things up unduly. And that's kind of it's a balancing act, and it's a difficult balancing act. So we are definitely trying to do that. Do you have any other comments on the plans? Is there something that you see there that you like, that you dislike?
I kind of like Plan C. That's about it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't really see any other callers.
That's it for the callers.
That's it for the callers. Well, I don't know if the council has any other comments for Mr. Sharp this evening. I'll go ahead and poll the council. Councilor Jaramillo? More thoughts, ideas?
Not really at this time. I'm still just, observing them, and I liked your comments about, research and polling being definitely objective, and that's something that they take the information, come up with the plans on their own, and then we try to make it user-friendly as well for the voters. So just in response to the gentleman's comment earlier, I think, and what you said, Mayor Pro Tem, we are taking an objective approach here. We haven't changed any of the plans that were created by Research and Polling. However, there is the opportunity to maybe make it easier for the voters to understand what district they're in, I guess you could say, right? So if there's, for example, an HOA that has members, they probably wouldn't want to be broken up into two different districts. That's very confusing for the voters. And their interests as a united HOA or a united neighborhood, let's say, maybe the neighborhood is concerned about roads, and that neighborhood wants to go to their official, elected official, and so, it's just considerations like that. I know Mayor Pro Tem Abrams, you had mentioned before that you're looking forward to having someone in your, district or neighborhood to go to with things. And so I think that was really just some of the comments from the public and the council, is that we just try to make it user-friendly to them as well, so that they can understand by these lines in this section, and and also for their interests too. And I'm glad we were able to look through the population, and like, for example, Plan C, that little area with 5, we were able to say, okay, it looks like we aren't able to just make that a clear line on 7, unfortunately. So that people could know if you're to the west or versus to the east. It would be clear for everybody to understand. But it looks like from the population as it was in 2010 that that that's not possible. And then, as we were going through this, I just thought to myself, population may change after the census, and we may be able to fix some of these funny-looking areas at that time. So those were just some of my thoughts. Like I said, I don't really have an outright preference at this time. I feel like I've only heard from a few members of the public, and thank you for all of those who did call in. And I did see Ms. Kaiser posted it on Nextdoor just today, I believe. So we probably will get more input than just this evening, and I'm curious to hear from other people as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Holly, you have some more comments?
I would just like to say thank you to Mr. Sharp for meeting with us twice within the last 2 weeks, and I too am happy that we got the population information that was informative. So thank you again. That's all.
Thank you, Counselor Holly. Counselor Abraham.
My first number one comment is thank you, Mr. Sharp. I did want to say you have a really awesome name because it's the same name as my original grandson, the one that made me a grandma. So, great name. The other thing is, I guess if I have any comments at all, I would like to see at the next presentation what it would look like to keep the boundary for between 1 and 2 on Church Street. But other than that, I think that one little corner up in the top isn't too bad because it is a subdivision, or mostly a subdivision. And like I said, these may all change when the next census comes out. But I think this is a great start, and I think this, it makes sense to me. So thank you for all the information. Because, my other concern was that little green part across Edgewood 7. So I did not realize there were that many people that lived in that area. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Can I clarify for a moment?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Councilor Abraham, I just wanted to, when you mentioned between districts 1 and 2 at Church, did you mean districts 2 and 4?
Probably, yeah, I meant 2 and 4. And I'm not Pro Tem, I'm just Councilor Abraham.
Okay. I'll look at moving the boundary between districts 2 and 4 down to Church. It might not be able to move everything below Maple and Duncan down to Church, or maybe some of them. Some of them can go back into 2.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Mr. Sharp, if you could give us the slides from tonight's presentation as well. I would definitely like to put the numbers up on our website as quickly as we possibly can. And since we haven't made any real changes to the boundaries, I don't know that we can. I don't know if we can if we have to have the whole slide pack. I think we do. If you could get those to us, and we'll get those numbers posted out there so the community can take a good long look at that. What I would like to see if we can do is to bring you back for one more regular council meeting, and that would be the council meeting on April 28th. Hopefully between now and April 28th we can gather up more comments and more information from the community, have it out for another couple of weeks, and maybe at that council meeting, if the council concurs, we might decide on one of the plans, or maybe modify a plan or something like that, and see if we can move things forward and go from there. If that is amenable to you, Mr. Sharp.
I think that April 28th works just fine, Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. And Council, do you have any comments on that? Is that a reasonable plan of action for the near future?
I think that's a good plan of action. I don't know how heavy our April 28th with budget discussion and everything, the second meeting sometimes is kind of heavy. I don't know if we can maybe move some of those things to a different council meeting or something, but just so that, you know, we look at putting in a place where it's not going to be a real heavy meeting, maybe.
Well, I'm willing to move some things around, in particular to get this done with all haste.
Okay. I do have one. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Abraham. Thank you, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you.
We have now action items. Discussion, consideration, and action on the approval of the RFP for the wastewater treatment plant contract services in its original form. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve the RFP for wastewater treatment plant contract services in its original form.
And I will second for discussion.
Discussion.
Councilor Abraham.
I'm curious as to why we have two action items on this particular item. Typically, we have the original one already, and we said we wanted changes. So why did we bring the original one back? I don't understand.
My understanding, Councilor, is we never received any changes.
Well, then what are the ones that are on? We have another one with changes. So I don't understand.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
So, Councilor Hawley had asked that this come back in its original form, and with respect to the changes, on the one that was changed, we went off of the changes that you stated at the meeting when it was originally brought, Councilor Abraham. So that was kind of our best guess to put what you wanted on there for that one, but that's why it's on here twice. Councilor, you had requested one with changes, and Councilor Hawley had requested one in its original form.
Oh, okay, just curious. Thank you.
Was that at the last meeting, or?
It was.
Because I do remember asking for these changes as far as presenting monthly, and I believe it was ensuring the safety standards or process standards, and I noticed those in here as well. Was that a separate request to have the original back?
Mayor, Council, if I may. So, yes, Councilor, as you all are aware, you as the governing body members have the right to request something on the agenda, and that was a request, and that is why it's on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Is it on for action?
It is
I guess
on
it
for
is.
consideration and action on approval. Yes, Councilor.
Councilor Hawley, you are fortunate.
Hearing no further discussion, I will call for a vote. Councilor Jaramillo.
Nay.
Councilor Abraham.
Nay.
Councilor Hawley.
Aye.
I'll vote aye, and the first discussion, action, consideration, and approval for the RFP for wastewater treatment fails for lack of a majority. And now we have discussion, consideration, and action on the approval of the RFP for wastewater treatment contract services with changes. Councilors, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion that we approve the RFP for the wastewater treatment plant contract services with the changes noted in the copy we have.
I will second.
So we've got a motion and second to approve the RFP for wastewater treatment plant services with the changes redlined all through. I will very interesting. I will caution you, council, that we are not a we are still a mayor council form of government, and passing this RFP at this time might put us in a bit of a bind. Legally, perhaps. I don't know. I could ask for comment on that if anybody's interested in hearing it.
Well, I think this is going to be for at least a year, and during that year, we will have a manager that will need to be reported to. So I think at that point, once the new form of government takes over, we will have a manager. We will still have a town clerk and treasurer, maybe. But the fact is, some of these reports need to go to a manager. So that was my clarification on that part. Well, yes, I mean, that's why it has all three terms. Is that, right now we're town clerk treasurer, but in the future we'll be a manager in that position. And so this says things like, notify the manager of corrective maintenance that may be required. Those are things that need to come, whoever's in charge of the plant, and also tasked with finding funding and, bringing it to council. So that's why I think manager needs to be in there.
Any other comments, council?
I do, but I'll let Councilor Abraham go through since she made the motion, if she has other points she'd like to make.
Is there anything else I need to clarify in here, or was it just the manager word?
I don't know. I haven't heard from all the councilors yet.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Councilor Hawley.
My opinion is we need to act on the situation in our town government as it is today. There is no manager. We need to deal with reality, and that's why I am not in agreement with these changes.
We did not strike out the word clerk treasurer, so it's actually appropriate for now and for the next administration.
I think, Councilor Abraham, if I could just echo what you were saying here, the term of this contract goes beyond our current form of government, and so contractors many times are held or could be held to the RFP and the scope of work in the RFP. So the technically accurate way of doing this, I would have to agree with Councilor Abraham, is just to be inclusive of whatever may happen when the change occurs, because this contract under this RFP could go for, I believe it's 4 years, isn't it, Juan? The professional services contract, right? So we can renew for 4 years. So I would recommend that we leave that in. I mean, it's not excluding anyone. It's actually facing the reality that we have a change coming up, and that the contract will continue on, like I said, for many years, possibly. So I would advocate that we leave that in there to be inclusive of the manager. Otherwise, it's possible we could have to do an amendment or something like that. Like I said, it all just depends on how the contract's worded. But then I did want to ask about some of the other changes in here. For example, the scope of work. It says the operator shall oversee the town of Edgewood wastewater treatment plant, and then we added and create or improve process control improvements. And really, we are looking for someone that can do that. And Councilor Hawley and Mayor Pro Tem Abrams. I do think it's wise with our notice of violations and things that have been coming up on the plant, and as complex as it is, and the turnover that we've had there, that we have an expert. And we've all heard from him. He has great input to us in the council meetings, and whoever wins this work is going to be an expert in this area, and for them to be able to help us improve the processes at the wastewater treatment plant, I think is fantastic. That's a great thing. In other words, that's getting our money's worth of this expert. So if you add it into the scope of work, that's an expectation that they're going to know that they have to be a consultant to us as well. And so I think that just makes good business sense and a good use of taxpayer dollars to get those improvement process and control improvements for the plant that struggles sometimes. As far as in the second section in item 4, we have adding one member of the governing body and one member of the public. For something as technical as this is and the problems that have existed in the past, even in prior RFPs and ratings and rankings, there has always been a governing body member involved and a member of the public in the history of the town. So I don't see that that's why you would object to that input of a member of the governing body. I mean, it could be you, it could be Abrams. I mean, I don't think Councilor Abraham is asking that it's her. Just one member and one member of the public that may have that technical expertise to help with the ranking. And I really don't see any risk with that. I mean, everybody seems to be pretty happy with the operator at this time. So, I don't see the problem of not allowing the public and the public's elected official to participate in that. And then that's the selection process. And then the town on page 5 at the top, the other changes, the town shall publicly approve and accept the terms and costs of the contract prior to signing. And again, that's just common sense. You want to make sure that all the terms and costs are approved and budgeted. And now the important one too, on page 6 that I thought we were all in agreement with at the last meeting, was to have our operator provide monthly reports and quarterly presentations to the governing body. This is very, very important. Very important. We need to stay updated. We need to have the information. There's a lot of scrutiny, as you guys know, on the operations of the wastewater treatment plant. So I think these reports and presentations to the governing body is very critical. If I remember right, I had asked for monthly presentations. This says quarterly. I would live with quarterly if we could do that, and then the monthly reports from the operator would be great, just as an employee would do, right? That gives the governing body the ability to oversee an area that's had a lot of violations and has been problematic for us in the past. It's very complex, needs a lot of funding, very technical, and I believe that this is information that would be very helpful to us and the manager for overseeing this plant. So those are the only changes I see, and I really don't see a reason to oppose them. If there's some good reasons to oppose them, I'm open for feedback. I'd like to hear them.
Council?
I believe they're all good changes, and I think possibly it will help us get a better handle on our wastewater plant than we have had in the past.
Timeliness.
Well, a couple comments on the other changes that have been made to this particular document. Some of this stuff is very interesting, interestingly redundant, and I think some of the wordsmithing here needs to be probably cleaned up a bit. I mean, the sentence, the first sentence in scope of work with the addition of "and create or improve process control improvements" is redundant and sounds really silly. I'm sorry, but it does, just straight off the top. There's some other things in here that, you know, the approving publicly, the terms, et cetera, we have to do that. That's part of what an RFP is. That's why we do an RFP. That is the
We
process.
have not always done them in the
But
past.
that is the process. That is the process. That's why we go out for an RFP. We do this as a public process. We have a process of selection. We have a process of contract negotiation. We bring that contract to the council. We've always done that. I'm sorry, Councilor Abraham, but that is the process. That's
Okay,
a redundant
well, that's
statement.
the
I mean, that's why we do a request for proposals. There's some other stuff in here. I mean, the monthly and quarterly that's fine. I mean, it's great. It's a lot of very technical information, and there are folks in the community who want to see that, I'm sure. I do. You know, there's some very interesting things here, but I still go back to the current form of government and what's going to happen. Now, there is another topic on our agenda this evening that could correct this entirely. So, when the contract comes forward, when the RFP is adjusted with the change of government, there is a way to do this smoothly, efficiently, and thoroughly, because I noticed in this document that there's several mentions of mayor still in the current changed one. So I don't know what's going on here exactly, but I would like to well, since we've already dropped the first one, I don't know if I could make a motion to approve the original this evening in this
You
discussion.
cannot.
So
You cannot.
I'll call for a vote if there's no other discussion.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may.
Mayor, hold on. Wait. Excuse me. The attorney at present would like to speak to this.
I would just like to draw to the council's attention that as a condition of the changed RFP, as well as the original RFP, it states that the agreement shall be governed exclusively by the laws of the state of New Mexico, as the same may exist from time to time. And what that means is that the law, at the time that the RFP is passed and submissions are received, that's the law that's applicable. And so therefore, if it's adopted by the mayor and council form of government, that's the law that governs it. When that form of government changes to the commissioner manager form of government, that law then becomes effective.
Mayor Pro Tem, may I make a suggestion here?
Councilor Jaramillo.
Yes, I am thinking that this is something that does need to get out the door. And if we could compromise on some of these things and just change the most important, that would be helpful. I know that our staff does not want to wait around for council to bring this back and have to worry about the word manager. That's ridiculous. It seems like if we could just change the first sentence there to "and create process control improvements," so delete or improve, okay? And Councilor Abraham, if you're willing to give up the word manager, I think the wastewater treatment plant operator is going to eventually end up reporting to the manager, right? And then in item 4, Mayor Pro Tem, you said you were fine with that change. And as far as the governing body, you were fine with that because that's what they do. And then, what was the last one? That's it. I think that's it. Are you okay, Councilor Abraham, if we were to take out the words manager and delete in that first line or improve, and then possibly we could pass this tonight and let the administration move forward with their work here.
I would agree to those amendments so that we can get this approved, because we are, our wastewater contract has expired already, so we need to get somebody, either have him do it again or apply for the RFP or whatever. So I do agree to those changes if we can get this passed tonight.
Okay, thank you. Are you guys open to removing that in the first line or improve so that it reads correctly, and then removing the manager changes? I think that was my ask for an amendment, and then we can go ahead and prove this tonight.
Council, Mr. Torres.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors. So just so you're aware,
Speak into your microphone, please. Everybody's.
just so you're aware, if this goes as amended, the governing body, this contract probably will not be signed and agreed upon until the last meeting in June. Just keep that in mind, because we're going to have to come back and at the earliest at the next meeting have their selection of who's going to be sitting on the committee, since you're now going to be doing that instead of the procurement manager. And then once the committee makes the selection, have the negotiation, try and get some potential contracts through you, and that might be, you might be lucky to have that done. We're talking the 4th, and then going into May, having it due on the 4th, going into May. I don't know if we'd have that done by the 12th, so possibly the 26th, and then if the governing body has any changes, I guess they take that back. The earliest could potentially be the end of May or the beginning of June to even have a contract approved. So just keep that in mind.
I think that we could probably shorten that if we were able to just decide on, who was going to serve on the committee, and if we had to call a special meeting once the procurement is completed with the rankings, I'm sure we could do that. We call special meetings for all kinds of other things, right? Employment related, and this is a priority. So,
and also, Mayor, Council, please keep in mind we also have a procurement ordinance which this governing body passed, which dictates how procurement is made. So if you would like to make changes to that ordinance, then I would suggest you propose it, because we are now deviating from our procurement ordinance.
I think that this is more in line with the previous past practice of the town, and I don't really see a problem with involving other people in the choosing of this important position.
And we've always approved the RFP committee after we've decided to send out the RFP. You don't want the committee before the RFP is issued. I think we can go ahead and approve these changes tonight and get the RFP out by May the 4th, and then do the rest as it comes after that. All the rest of it's after that.
Well, that's a good point, because it's due. You're probably giving them some time anyway, right, Juan? I didn't look for the due date.
We're giving them about 14 days from timeout, and we're required by state law for 10 days.
Okay. Yeah, so we should be fine with that time frame. And like I said, if we need a special meeting, I'm sure all of us could jump on a Zoom call for 15 minutes and get it done. I'd hate to delay it even, when we don't have to.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Councilor Hawley.
I have a couple more comments. On page number 2 of the revised RFP, where the change says this has to do with the Technical Advisory Committee. And it was added that one member of the governing body and one member of the public would be included. I'd like to see that stricken. We already have town personnel and or town contractors. And our town contractors, you know, most of them are engineering firms, and I think that gives us the expertise that we need on that technical advisory committee. And then the other comment I had was on page 4, just above the bottom, number 3, where it says negotiations. The change was made to say an evaluation committee composed of representatives selected by the governing body rather than mayor. Well, the mayor is the administrative head of the town, and I still think it should be mayor and not governing body. But we're the legislators.
And my rebuttal to that is the town personnel or the town contractors, neither one were elected by the public to represent them. The other part of that is it is our job to have oversight over this plant and the people who are running it. So I don't see a problem at all with having one member of the governing body. Like I said, it doesn't have to be me, it could possibly be you. But the other part of that is we no longer have a mayor, we have a mayor pro tem. So the governing body needs to assign these people. I mean, if you want to look at what does our governing body look like, you know, right now we have no mayor.
Well, I don't know. I think the district court would disagree with you, Counselor. But regardless, if we don't have any further motions, we do have a motion and second to approve this and move forward with a vote, I guess. I didn't I didn't hear you either, Counselor Jaramillo nor Counselor Abraham. I heard discussion, but I didn't hear a motion. So if you want to make a motion, you're perfectly welcome to.
I make a motion I thought I had already made that motion.
No, we have a motion and a second to approve what's before us. I was referring to Counselor Jaramillo's attempt at reconciling some of the issues.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You are correct. It was an informal, you know, we've done this in the past as far as friendly amendment, but we should make it formal. I make a motion to strike in the first sentence or improve so that it reads accurately, and to strike the red line changes of where it states manager throughout the document. So that is my motion.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second to make editing changes as stated. I'm not going to review that because I believe everybody understands what we're doing here. How do you vote? Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Holly?
Nay.
I vote nay, and the changes to this document fail for lack of a majority. And now I will call for the vote on the document itself. Counselor Abraham, how do you vote?
Of the document that has the red line copies already without the changes?
Correct.
I vote aye.
Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Holly?
Nay.
And I vote nay, so the RFP for wastewater treatment dies for lack of majority. Next item on the agenda is consideration and action on the approval of Resolution 2021-03, the Town of Edgewood Governing Body Operating Resolution in its original form. Councilors, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-03, Town of Edgewood Governing Body Operating Resolution in its original form.
And I will go ahead and second. Do I hear discussion?
My thought in approving this is it has served us well in the past, and again, there will be changes coming in 2022, and we're already halfway through this year, 2021. I think we just move forward with what we've been working with, and it'll change under the next government, I'm sure.
Comments
Councilor Jaramillo.
on page 2, item 2, special meetings. I noticed that you had called us with a in-person notification for the last special meeting, and just happened to randomly come across that statute this past week. So is that something that we need to discuss here? Is that, I mean, that's never typically been done in the past, and it doesn't state that in here. Is that something we need to add?
I don't think so, since we've been operating quite handily on this for quite some time now. That is part of the statute, and I think it is always wise to follow the statute, but it's not necessary to reiterate statute in our operating resolution.
Sure. Okay. Then, let's see here. On page 3, letter E, electronic devices, you guys have heard my arguments before, but I will repeat them. Not sure why there's objection to using electronic devices for communications during the meeting. The item number 2 under E is not true, and that was actually admitted by our legal counsel from Robles last year, that is not in violation of the Open Meetings Act, and therefore we cannot create a violation of the Open Meetings Act that does not exist. So this item is technically inaccurate, and I think should be stricken. And so I will make a motion right now to remove items 1 and 2 of letter E on page 3.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to remove item E1 and E2 from the document.
And just another note on that, I do believe it's very important to listen to any member of the public who wishes to communicate with us via email or text. And as well, we have to have our personal devices with us for these electronic meetings, these video conferences. So.
Any other discussion?
One other thing is, in number 3, it says participation by telephone. Do we need to add something on there like by Zoom or something like that?
Councilor Abraham, you certainly can make that kind of a motion. However, we have a motion and a second before us with regard to items 1 and 2 of section E. Any further discussion?
Not on that part.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to hear council's opinion on the comment that Councilor Jaramillo made, that item number E2 is inaccurate. I don't remember the comment from last year when she said, legal counsel said thus.
Thank you, Councilor Hawley. I was not the attorney that made that comment, but I believe that subparagraph 2 of subsection E is meant to prevent a quorum from occurring improperly in violation of the Open Meetings Act through those private forms of communication.
This was actually, I understand that statement there, and that's definitely a concern that there should not be a quorum outside of the meetings. This, however, is something completely different and is not covered by the Open Meetings Act in relation to a concern that was brought up, I think it was 4 years ago now, maybe 2017 or so, a concern that Councilor Abraham had received or sent a text from one member of the public, and this is, I think, a very reactionary and controlling addition to this operating resolution. But the Open Meetings Act does not prohibit elected officials from hearing from their constituents. In fact, that would be just the opposite spirit of the Open Meetings Act. So what was stated is that hearing from the public is not a violation of Open Meetings Act. It's very clear.
I understand that, Councilor Jaramillo. I think that this provision also addresses the concerns about a quorum occurring and the exchange of information about an agenda item amongst the council members, which would in fact be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And I think that's a consideration to take when you're voting on the motion that has received a second.
But this is during meetings, so we already have a quorum. And that, you know, there's no concern here really about a meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. It's more on the exchange of hearing from the public communications. And so I think that's where the problem comes in because, for example, right now, we're all using electronic devices right now. You're aware of that. And so, you know, that makes it wrong altogether in the first place. But then also we have a quorum here. So this operating resolution is not going to prevent a quorum in a meeting. We already have a quorum.
I understand that a quorum exists in the meeting.
Then from there, you know, if you were to try to prohibit the public from contacting their representatives, that's totally inappropriate. And the Open Meetings Act does not require that. And we, as legislators of a municipality, cannot add something to the Open Meetings Act, right? And so, you know, being deemed in violation, what the attorney had said last year was that that is not accurate. It's not a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
I would just like to point out that subsection pertains to the private exchange of information pertaining to an agenda item. Therefore, a quorum could exist outside of the quorum that exists in the public meeting. And that is the only caution that I would advise consideration of when you're voting on the motion that has been seconded.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps we could change this to say members of the governing body shall not use electronic devices for personal, or I would say for communications during the meeting between each other.
Counselor, before you continue, I don't really want to interrupt you, but I'm going to have to. Because you have a motion and a second to strike item E1 and E2. And now you're trying to modify that. Do you wish to retract your motion?
No, sir. We are in discussion. And so, as in discussing this, I'm just saying if there's concern about governing body members within a meeting texting each other, for example, on their phones during a meeting, well, let's put that in there because that's accurate. I mean, that's okay. I have no objection to that. I don't need to text Counselor Abrams. You know, I'm speaking to him. I have no need to text him. So that would be fine. That would be fine, because then we are heading off, or just making it clear that governing body members during the course of a meeting should not text each other during the meeting to have a quorum inside of a quorum. Does that make sense? Am I explaining it properly along with Ms. Nixon? That's what she's saying. She's saying you can't, amongst yourselves, create a quorum during the course of your meeting and, you know, start texting or calling each other and having a quorum inside of a quorum. And I'm just saying, if that's the concern, guys, let's still eliminate 1 and 2, but let's add. I mean, if that's something the council wants to add, if you think that that's of concern, that we're, for some reason, talking to each other to create a quorum, then we could add that.
Council, we have a motion and a second to remove items E, 1, and 2. Any further discussion?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Councilor Holly.
I guess I just want to add, my understanding is that we should not, as counselors during a council meeting, be having private conversations with the public. We should be doing our business in front of the microphone per the Open Meeting Act. And any kind of communication private like that, whether Councilor Jaramillo, you're saying it's between us counselors, and I'm saying, or with the public, we shouldn't be doing that.
Well, I guess my explanation, or try to help you understand this, is, you know, for example, you voted against public comment being on an agenda. You voted against public comment being before action items.
Councilor Jaramillo, you're out of order, Councilor Jaramillo. We're discussing this, not public comment. We're not discussing anything other than what we are discussing in your motion, which is the removal of items 1 and 2 under section E of the document that's before us. Let's not get off track.
Okay, fantastic. Will you let me finish my point, please? We are in discussion. So, the way I see it is we are elected to represent the public. If they are not given by you the ability to participate in the meeting, and let's say that a thought occurs to them and they want to give us information, they want to send an email, they want us to read something into the record, whatever it may be, that should be an option for the public. We represent them. There's no problem with bringing forward comments from the public. If right now a public member wanted to tell me something about an upcoming agenda item, okay, there shouldn't be an issue with representing them and getting their comments and their input. If you don't want to hear from them, I don't understand why you even ran for office.
Okay, so let's not get too far off track here, folks. We have a motion and a second to strike items 1 and 2 in section E, and I think it's time to call for a vote.
I have one discussion item on that. Being that it was a text from me during a council meeting that created this whole need to ban electronic devices, I texted my husband to bring me a Coke one night. And so I am diabetic. If I need to text him to tell him to bring me a snack, I need to be able to do that. That was what I did that night.
Counselor, thank you for your narrative there. It's just simple good practice in meetings. I don't care if it's a business meeting or a staff meeting or a council meeting. to silence your electronic devices. Yes, it's fine to get an emergency call. Yes, it's fine to take one or even ask for a break in the meeting to take something that's important. It's happened to all of us. It'll happen to all of us again. It is not appropriate, however, to carry on a conversation that should be public in private with anybody, whether it's the public or anyone. If somebody wants to send me a text message during a meeting, I probably won't answer it because I don't think that's appropriate. Unless, it's an emergency and something bad is happening and I have to. Yes, I will monitor it, and this document says that you can. What it says you can't do is carry on a conversation with somebody under the table. It's got to be public. During a council meeting, it should be public. And councilors, I will remind you that all of us were elected one time or two or a couple. So with that, I will ask for a vote on whether or not we have items E, 1, and 2 in or out of this document. Councilor Abraham.
Sorry, I was silencing my electronic devices. I think that we should all be mature enough to be able to handle having electronic devices on and using them as needed. So I vote to strike it. I vote aye.
Councilor Holly.
Nay.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
I vote nay. The motion dies for lack of a majority. We have a motion and a second on approving the operating resolution number 2021-03. Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Okay, backing up a step here.
Councilor, I'm moving forward with calling for a vote. We've had discussion.
We've had discussion on those two items.
We've had quite a good bit of discussion.
Yes, we have, and we still need to address where the item is for executive closed sessions required to be in person. I think that now would be a great time to allow for closed sessions as most other governments do. This is nothing unusual at all.
Councilor, I'm patiently entertaining your diatribe, but I am also calling for a vote.
Well, I do make a motion then to remove the requirement that closed sessions be in person and to allow them to be teleconference or video conference. That is my
Councilor,
motion.
your motion is out of order. We have already had a vote on this topic.
That's a different topic.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
I made a motion.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote? To approve or disapprove the operating resolution 2021-03?
You're not going to let me make a motion?
No,
to
Councilor,
amend
we've already
the
begun voting. I called for a vote, and
or-
I've had one councilor vote in the affirmative so far. We don't need to do this again.
This is a totally different topic as far as closed sessions being in person. We don't,
Councilor,
we don't know what's going to happen with COVID.
Counselor.
You want to leave town hall closed. We need to be able to meet via video conference.
Councilor, I had called for a vote. Last I checked, once voting begins, we vote. That ends discussion. We've already had a vote. That ended discussion. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Nay.
Councilor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Operating Resolution 2021-03 passes. Thank you, Council. Next, we have discussion, consideration, and action on the approval of the RFP for audit services for the town of Edgewood. Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Counselor Holly.
I move to approve the RFP for audit services for the town of Edgewood.
I will second, and with discussion.
Discussion. Counselor Jaramillo.
Yes, just wanted to request that I'll make a motion to make it official here, to add in to this RFP the instance for assistance with preparing a comprehensive annual financial report. And just to add that one item in here so that we could see how much it would cost to have assistance with that. And thank you for adding lodger's tax. Anyways, back to my motion. I just wanted to add into the scope and the cost proposal on page 29, assistance with CAFR preparation and submission. Comprehensive annual financial report. It doesn't mean that we have to do this, but it means for the future in one of the next 3 or 4 years, that would be a possibility so that we don't have to go back out to procurement again just to cover that one thing. So if we add it into the scope now, that gives us the option in the future to go ahead and have an annual report.
Where would you put that?
That would be in the scope of work, and also on Appendix F, it would just be a line item right after federal single audit line. Juan would just add a box in there, or Amelia, and it would just say assistance with the comprehensive annual financial report preparation and submission. I know you all are familiar with those reports. North Central Regional Transit District, for example, Counselor Holly, you were recognizing them in the past for doing that. And like I said, I know resources and everything, it doesn't mean we have to do it this year. It just gives us the option so that we don't have to go out to bid for that or get quotes for that. If in the future we wanted to do it, we'd already be covered by this RFP. Okay.
Mr. Torres, do you have a comment on that? No. No comment? Okay. Well, I heard a motion there. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a motion and a second to add. Wow, I'm having a really hard time jotting down all the words. So.
It's a comprehensive annual financial report. And I just recently found out that it is inappropriate to use the acronym.
Right.
Apparently it's something. So I have to remind myself to say the whole word.
To add into the RFP, let's see if I get this correct, add into the RFP scope of work, assistance with, preparation of a comprehensive annual report, and adding it to Appendix F as well, prior to federal single audit and post financial statement prep. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yay.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Counselor Holly.
may I ask a question of our procurement officer, please?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I would like to know from Mr. Torres, if that is added into the scope, is that something that we can decide not to do?
Mayor, Council, as the governing body, when this is just the RFP. When the actual contract comes forth, it could be added to the contract or taken out, and we can even word it to say optional assistance or something. I mean, we don't have to say they will or they shall provide the assistance with the CAFR. We could put with the option of providing assistance or something of that nature.
I would feel more comfortable with that if Councilor Jaramillo would accept that friendly amendment.
Yes, absolutely. It's fine.
Okay. Without trying to restate the motion again, if there is no further discussion, I will call for a vote. Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We now must vote on the RFP in its totality. Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. We have an RFP for audit services. Thank you, Council. Next, we have discussion, consideration, and action on my recommendation to hire Rachel Martinez as librarian for the town of Edgewood. You have before you our current librarian operations manager's letter and the application. Do we have any questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the hire of Rachel Martinez as librarian to the town of Edgewood.
Thank you, Counselor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Counselor Jaramillo seconds. We have a motion and second to approve the recommendation to hire Rachel Martinez as librarian for the town of Edgewood. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you, Council. Welcome, Rachel Martinez, in your new position. Next, we have discussion, consideration, and action to codify the Town of Edgewood ordinances and resolutions. Council, we've discussed this in previous sessions, and it was asked that we actually take action on this and approve it. Do I hear a motion to approve the codification, to move forward with the codifying the ordinances and resolutions of the Town of Edgewood?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to approve codifying the town of Edgewood ordinances and resolutions.
And I will second that. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Jaramillo.
Sorry, I was on mute. I just wanted to hear the clerk's recommendation on this.
Mr. Torres.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So, if everything I've seen with codification and creating the code, I think it makes understanding all of our ordinances and resolutions so much easier for the public. It would be very easy to go look up if someone just moved to Edgewood, or so someone wanted to see, hey, I would like to do this. So instead of trying to go look, is this allowable in the zoning ordinance, or is this allowable in the, any other ordinance or plan that the town might have, it's all kind of put together in one. So you could potentially go in and look at, I guess an easy one would be like animal complaints. And you can look up in there, and if there's anything that mentions animals across all of our various ordinances, it'll all be brought into one section so we can clearly see, here's everything that all the town rules that pertains to animals. Same thing with the subdivision, any kind of development. It pulls it all together, and it makes it easier to read. For I guess even for governing body members. Also, it makes it easier so we won't have to try and put together a big resolution book that you'll constantly be having to update, change, swap out. Any change that the governing body makes moving forward, we would make that change into the into the code, so to speak, and have it be codified, and that change would be reflected in there. You could also go back, or any other future governing body member could go back and, let's just say, we're looking at the land use ordinances, and they can go back to a specific section, let's just say C2, for example. They can see all the changes that have been made going back in time. As with respect to moving forward with the new form of government, it would make it easier also to make any changes or adjustments to the ordinances with respect to powers, duties, and authorities for the new commissioners to say, okay, this authority rests with the manager instead of the mayor, or the changes will be easier to make and easier to identify versus pulling every individual ordinance up and saying, okay, here are all the changes that need to be made. You can look it up in the in the code, so to speak, and say, okay, here are all the ordinances, and just do a query for it, and there it all is. Municipalities that have it, I have not heard anything bad about it.
Thank you for all of that. That's great. I am curious if we can retain the historical information. That's my one. I know we can, as far as they're going to refer to the historical records in each codified section. But I guess my main concern, and maybe I'll just make a motion for this just to put my mind at ease. I would like to make a motion that, along with codification, that we preserve Edgewood's history with the original documents, and with it being on the website, pre-codification documents as they are now, and then the codified version, just so that we can ensure that through document retention or anything else that we have those preserved for Edgewood's history. That is my motion.
Counselor, before we hear a second on your motion, I will remind you that ordinances and resolutions basically have to be kept in perpetuity. So, we have to do that already. That is already archived. That is part of the clerk's duties. And codification actually does that as well and shows any kind of change moving forward or backward. All of the original documentation must be retained. So I don't know if you want a second on your motion, or shall we move forward?
I guess I would, honestly. It would make me feel better. I don't have the document retention policy right in front of me that we passed, what was it, a year, almost 2 years ago?
Yeah, there's also a state document retention policy on various documents that we have to adhere to, and there are some federal ones which we have to adhere to as well. So, depending upon the document, but resolutions and ordinances, there is specific in perpetuity. It's sort of like the state constitution. You don't want it to go away next week. But you do want to see all the changes since, the beginning of the state.
Right.
I'll go ahead and second it just to edify you. I'm not scared.
Thank you.
We got a motion and a second to ensure the perpetuation of our document retention. Let's see, Councilor Holly? How do you vote on
Aye.
that? You vote aye. Councilor Jaramillo, I know you're going to vote aye.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Aye as well. So yes, okay, that's part of this. Now we have to codify it. Councilor Harden.
I have a couple.
Oh, here we
I have
go.
a couple questions for Mr. Torres too. So when we do this and they're all codified, and are we going to get new updated books? Are we going to get it on a thumb drive? We have council books that are kind of sort of out of date, and how are we going to
update those?
Yes, Mayor, Council. So I guess we could always update the books for you, but because it's codified, it'll actually be on the website. It'll be on there. You can go look it up any time of day. I'm not certain if we can download it from the website. I think you can archive it, you can save it, you can share it, you can, you know, all the latest features. I mean, you can send it to someone's phone via text message or the link to it. You can do all that other stuff, but it would all be there. I mean, certainly it's your preference as a member of the governing body. If you still would like to have an updated big book with physical hard copies, we can provide that. But with it being codified in the town code, so to speak, it's there and it'd be available on the website. It'd be available. We could probably even have a hard copy printed out for you. I mean, it's really what you guys want at that point.
Okay, I'm just concerned because I remember when we moved from one website provider to another, we had a lot of files that never transferred over. So that's just my concern is how do we make sure that we don't lose them once we if we transfer website providers.
I mean, I guess with respect to that, I mean, it'll actually be the town's code, and it'd be kind of hard to cut out some ordinances, from the code if we ever to switch over to a different, I guess, provider, a different company that does the codification.
Yeah. Let me see if I can help.
Thank you.
Technically, codification is a database that we own.
Mm-hmm.
And the presentation of that database is a website. It is not the website. So
Okay.
there will be a link on the town's website to all of the codified documents. The
Okay.
codified documents we retain. The public is going to be free to peruse through the entire thing. It'll all be there, it'll all be indexed, it'll all be readable, it'll all be searchable. So you can do text search. These are things we can't do right now.
Right, I know.
But it's not like an old website where
Okay.
each document is a file. That is not it. This is a database of all of the documents, and we do retain paper copies. We have to. So, Councilor Jaramillo's concern about the history of things. Yes, we do have to retain paper copies. According to document retention policies of various entities, the state included, even the database has to be backed up. So, I mean, we have to ensure data security and data assurity. So we're going to have to, create it, present it, back it up, and make sure that it continues to live in perpetuity. So I don't think I hope I've alleviated your concern with that, because it's not like the original 1999 2000 version of a website where everything is a text file. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess we move on to vote. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We will codify our ordinances and resolutions. Thank you, Council. Next, we have consideration, action, and discussion of Resolution 2021-05, the Town of Edgewood budget adjustment for purchasing road equipment, road department, and adding heavy equipment operator position to the road department, purchasing equipment for the maintenance department, and adding a maintenance worker to the maintenance department, and purchasing furniture and fixtures for the library.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, if I may.
Mr. Torres.
So I do apologize. Putting this together, I omitted the speed trailer. So that one was roughly $19,600, and that could be added to the equipment machinery of either the maintenance or the road department. I mean, it's going to be a piece of equipment that police, road department, everyone can utilize. So there's that. And then also seeing that you just approved codification. I don't know if you would like to do the budget adjustment now for that or later, but I believe the quote for that one was approximately $16,800.
I would ask the pleasure of the council on that, adding that, because it's not actually on our agenda. The road equipment, however, is, and the road equipment, I would consider the speed trailer / counter part of road equipment, so I don't think that's outside of our agenda. I would be careful to add the codification right now to this budget resolution, though. Does council concur? I'm not asking for a vote on that. I'm just asking for head shakes. I see at least 3 head shakes.
I agree because it was brought up at the last meeting to the public and discussed pretty thoroughly as far as the road equipment trailer, and I think that even public comment wanted to see the speeds go down, but then codification maybe next time, huh? We can just add it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We also well, do we need a budget resolution for the codification?
Mayor Pro Tem Council, so we can do it one of 2 ways. I mean, we kind of have an authorization for the governing body to do it, so we could come back at the end of the year and just add it as a end of year budget adjustment. You know, it's kind of the governing body's pleasure with that point. Also, just on that note, with respect to end of year budget adjustments, these budget adjustments for the equipment and everything don't include transfers, so those will be brought back also. So you might see a transfer for the equipment and the end of the year budget adjustments. This is just giving us the authority to put that in the budget to actually purchase the equipment, but it's not taking into account the transfers at this time.
I do have a quick question. If the, as we had discussed, the using cash balance, is that where the road department expenditures are coming out of?
Mayor, Council, I mean, that's going to be completely up to you. We can pull it out of cash balance. We can pull it from a different fund. I mean, that's what I'm saying with respect to the transfers later. You guys can make that call. We could do I guess if you look at general fund has balances, capital improvements, that fund has balances, so it's going to be the decision of the governing body as to where you would like to transfer the funds from.
Council, if I can take just a moment and basically say that since the council has decided to move forward with the previous topic, that I think that is a mandate for the clerk treasurer to move forward on the codification. We will have a budget adjustment for that forthcoming, if need be. I don't know. I mean, $16,000. We might have that in the administrative budget right now. So I'll check on that, and if we need to bring a bar back, I will. If there's other adjustments necessary for the codification, I'll let you know. But if we can move forward on that, that would be very good. I think moving forward with all haste to get that accomplished would be a great benefit, not only to the council and the administration, but to the citizens as well. With regard to the next thing, though, with this resolution, I believe there is a consensus or not resolution, sorry. Oh yeah, it is a resolution. Yeah, 2021-05. That there is a consensus to go ahead and add the $19,600 to the discussion of purchasing equipment for the road department, and I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we add that amount for the speed trailer to this resolution.
Well, let's do a motion to approve the resolution, and then I'll entertain the motion to add that. I think that's the appropriate way to do this. So do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 2021-05, a Town of Edgewood budget resolution for purchasing equipment for the road department, the maintenance department, and purchasing furniture and fixtures for the library?
I will second. And I will second.
Okay, Councilor Abraham made the motion. Councilor Jaramillo seconded the motion. Now, Councilor Abraham, if you would make the subordinate motion to add the 19,600, or maybe I should make a motion to add 19,600 for a speed monitoring and traffic counting trailer. Do I hear?
And I will second that.
And Councilor Abraham seconded. Do we have any more discussion on this?
I have one more item, but we probably need to vote on hers first, right?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not hearing any further discussion on the motion to add the speed / traffic count trailer. I will ask for the vote. Councilor Holly.
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. We're going to add the speed trailer to the resolution, if you would. And now, further discussion. Councilor Jaramillo.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we utilize our cash balance for this bar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to use cash balance. Any discussion? And any comment from our clerk treasurer? No comment, so I'll ask for a vote on this. Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
And although I think this might limit us to moving things around in the future, aye as well. So add that to our resolution if you would, please. Thank you. And do we have any further discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We're moving forward with Resolution 2021-05. Thank you, Council. Next, we have public comment regarding general matters. Once again, I will go through the callers and unmute each one as we go through, if the callers can identify themselves and whether they wish to comment on general matters. And we will start with caller number 3. Caller number 3, are you there?
Yes, this is Linda Burke. I have no comment for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Caller number 4. Caller number 4? I don't hear anyone at caller number 4. Caller number 5.
Yeah, this is Karen Kaiser, and I don't have any public comment on general matters tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Caller number 6. Caller number 6? Is there anyone at caller number 6? I don't hear anyone at caller number 6. We jump up then to caller number 10. Caller number 10, is there someone there? Hello? I hear no one at caller number 10. That would be it for all of our callers who are currently online. And we move on for other matters from the councilors. Councilor Hermio.
There were a couple of items that I wanted to follow up on. The legal bills is one. I'm just curious if you had heard back from the law firm on that. I'm really concerned about the amount and where we're at on budget with that.
Okay. I think we should have some answers for you shortly.
Okay, that is good. And then let's see, what was my other? It escaped me. Sorry. If it comes to me, maybe I'll let you know what it is. But something had occurred to me during the meeting, and I should have jotted it down. Anyway, I'll pass to the next person. Thank you.
That would be Councilor Abraham. Councilor Abraham, you're muted.
I would like to, once again, publicly request some type of mediation workshop. I think there are some things that need to be dealt with as far as lack of cooperation amongst the governing body. I think some mediation would help. The other thing I have a real concern with is I do not feel represented by Ms. Jessica Nixon at our council meetings. I would like to request a more independent attorney attend our meetings. I would agree to have William Czar again, but I do not feel comfortable being that Ms. Nixon represented half of the governing body against the other half. I feel there's a conflict there. So those are my major concerns. The next thing I would like to do is ask about for an update on the Purple Heart Trail sign and a ceremony. Do you have any information on that for me? I know the signs were in. Where are we going to plan the ceremony?
I believe our road supervisor does have an update for you on that.
The signs are up. They're at the.
I can't hear him.
Swallow that microphone.
Is
that microphone off?
I don't know if it. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. The signs are up.
You got to talk right into it.
The signs are up. They're on the off ramps and on ramps. The signs are up.
So now, I guess what you're asking, Councilor Abraham, is when shall we schedule a ceremony?
Right. I was thinking maybe Memorial Day.
How about Memorial Day or Veterans Day? Either one.
I would really like Veterans Day most, but it's already been such a long time. So I'm thinking maybe Memorial Day.
Maybe 2 ceremonies.
That would be good too.
Because a lot of folks that I know, and some very personal and close to me, received multiple Purple Hearts posthumously.
Mm-hmm. So I think it would be good to honor them. And then I just had a question. What's happening with the Veterans Memorial? Are we still doing anything with that?
It still exists. It's not going anywhere. It's made out of concrete.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there was a dedication, and there is a flag flying over it every single day. So
Okay.
if we're going to add to it or do anything like that, I'm certainly open to suggestions there.
Okay. All right.
I know. Just so to give you a little background, I have personally been involved in 4 memorials to veterans in different places across the country, and doing the collection of funds and creation of bronzes, plaques, permanent photography, and installations. So, you just state what you want to do, and I can probably figure out who and where.
Okay. I recently met a woman who's very involved with that kind of thing, and so I think she might want to be part of whatever we're doing. So I'll keep her appraised of what we want to do.
Yeah, and if you want to bring things forward, please do.
Okay. The next thing is I wanted to assure, I know we had talked about keeping the next agenda kind of light, but I wanted to assure that we bring forth a motorcycle awareness month for May proclamation.
That's already on my list too, and I don't know if you know, but I still own one and have been an avid motorcyclist since I got my driver's license.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And have actually worked in the industry for over 10 years.
Okay.
Although that's not what I do anymore.
Okay. Well, I think if we can get some mediation and a different attorney representing us at our meetings, I think I would be quite satisfied with today's outcome. Thank you.
Councilor Holly.
Okay, I have some information to share with the public, and all of this can be found on the town's website. First of all, we've got a free community dumpster day on April 24th, beginning at 8 a.m., and you're encouraged to come to Venus Park that morning and pick up a trash bag and gloves, and it sounds like you'll be able to drop off, it's called a challenge, 1 day, 1 bag challenge. So you can find more information, like I said, on the town website. And then following that, Arbor Day will be celebrated in Edgewood on Friday, April 30th. The town will have a drive-through tree seedling giveaway. There will be a limit of 2 per household on a first-come, first-served basis, and that begins at 9 a.m. at Town Hall. Next, I want to bring to everyone's attention that there is a emergency rental and utility assistance program. The state of New Mexico will grant $170 million of federal aid to New Mexicans for rental and utility assistance to households experiencing financial hardship due to the COVID-19 outbreak. The program has begun taking applications and will continue through the end of August 2021. So again, please go to the town website where you can apply and get some more information. In addition, Santa Fe County is announcing they are looking for new members to fill vacancies on their Water Policy Advisory Commission. It's a 12-member committee, and members must serve a term of 3 years and meet every second Thursday of the month. And so if you go to the town website, you will find more information about what that position entails and what kind of experience they're looking for. And you will need to submit a resume and relevant experience. But there's also contact information if you have questions. I think due date is May 15th for that. In addition, Santa Fe County has opened their Edgewood satellite office. That's to expand services to the county residents in our area. That Edgewood satellite office is in the Edgewood Senior Center, and it is open on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Again, more information on the town website. And finally, I'll continue to promote our Blue Bus demand service in the Edgewood Moriarty area. I've spoken to staff at the North Central Regional Transit District, and I'm told there's a lot of interest and there has been use of this service. I also received a query from one of the commuter bus riders who used to ride the commuter bus to Santa Fe Monday through Friday for work. And the question was when that route will begin again. And there's no date certain at this time. The bus driver that drove that commuter bus is now driving for our demand service on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the bus driver, his name is Michael, he also works in a state office in Santa Fe. So personally for him, he said there is no scheduled return to be in a physical office in Santa Fe anytime soon. So until that happens, my understanding is he'll continue to drive the local bus here in Edgewood and Moriarty. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Holly. You've stolen almost all of my thunder.
Thunder was the motorcycle. That was a big deal.
That was my thunder.
I still have a motorcycle, but I've been told that, well, I'm not going to go there. The only thing that I have left is a hearty round of applause and thank you to the Edgewood PD for their work recently. There have been several incidents in town that have required their expertise and attention and persistence. I'm not going to go too much further into that. One of them was quite tragic. The other, however, I will go into, and that is that they helped out today with the State Department of Health's vaccination clinic for COVID. We were told originally that we were going to have 500 vaccinations available. They actually brought 750. And it's my understanding that they used all of the vaccine that they brought. I'm not sure what the total number was, if it was exactly 750 or just under 750, but I was told that they used it all, so that was good. We will be having a follow-up Department of Health vaccination clinic. The date to be announced. We know it's going to be somewhere in the 2-week in the future vicinity, but we don't know exactly the date yet. And as soon as that date becomes available, I'm certain that we will have it and announce it and post it on our website. And as always with the vaccines currently, be sure to register at the Department of Health's website and get your vaccination ticket or whatever you want to call it, their little number. And hopefully they will let you know when the time is to come and get your second one. And we will do that here in Edgewood in a couple of weeks. And with that, we'll move on to matters from the Clerk Treasurer.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, members of the public, so just want to bring your attention that the town of Edgewood once again is on a list, and it's not a bad list. We are number 9.
We can't hear you, Juan.
Swallow that mic, Juan.
All right, how about now?
There you go.
All right. So
That's better.
all right. So I just wanted to let you all know we are on a list, and it's not a bad list. This, it's the list we've been consistently on. So SafeWise.com has put us once again in the top 10 safest cities in New Mexico. We are number 9 for 2021. See the chief, see the officers, tell them thank you. I also wanted to let you know, so we are going to receive approximately $1.4 million from the American Recovery Plan from the federal government from this last stimulus. The federal guidelines really don't have any guidance as to what the funds can be used for. Something similar to the CARES Act actually expands upon that, but we're still waiting for final guidance to be given down to DFA and then from DFA to us. So once we have more information on that, we will let you know. And once again, that's coming from the federal government to the state and then from the state to us. So I'm not certain what DFA is going to require of us for that, and when we find out more, we'll let you know. With respect to the projects that are going, the capital projects that are going on, Edgewood 7 trail design is underway, and estimated completion for that to have it 90% designed is going to be by the end of August this year. And keep in mind that the grant we received was 3 years ago, and it was a TAP grant, the Transportation Alternative Program grant, and it was just for design only. There are not any funds available for construction, but I think once we have the design, we should have an accurate estimate to start proceeding to try and acquire funding for that. Pedestrian bridge, we received all the updated rights-of-way and approvals from the state. We're working on getting the RFP back out and advertised, and our timeline for that would hopefully be to have that thing completed, have construction begin around mid-July and end in December. Echo Ridge Park, we've kind of hit a snag, so since we don't own the property, we're still waiting for BLM to sign off and certify to the state for I think it's the right of ways, but anyway, that's where we're at there. So we're continuing to work with trying to get BLM to issue that to the state so we can move forward with that project. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Well, the last thing we have is calendar review. I'll remind everyone of Councillor Holly's items. That we have community dumpsters free for 1 day, one bag cleanup challenge, which is April 24th at Venus Park. The next regular council meeting will be April 28th. Same bat time, same bat station. Arbor Days, drive-through tree seedling giveaway at Town Hall on April 30th. Come get your trees. And Santa Fe County District 3 Senior Center Planting Day in celebration of Earth Day 2021 will be May 8th at the Edgewood Senior Center from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Beyond that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Everybody moves to adjourn. I think that was a second. And we will take a chorus vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Aye. Good night.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh, I didn't end.